All right, let's welcome an Eagles legend into the studio. It's going to be a weekly basis here as Jason Kelce joins us every single Thursday at this time for an hour, fielding your phone calls and talking some birds. He was already an international star, but since we last talked to him, took his act to ESPN.
That's right.
Jason, how are you, buddy?
How's it going, Joe?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
Good, man.
Happy to be up bright and early. Productive day. Start off good. Yeah.
Well, hold on. Productive. You're 4 or 5 minutes late here. I mean,
It's very true.
I mean, what would Stoutland say to that?
I would be fined. I would be fined, and I wouldn't be able to look him in the face.
He's not late because of him.
Are you not as hungry dog as you were a couple years ago?
I would be that dog with its tail tucked between its legs walking into the meeting room.
With the guilty
Or
look.
you could be the Joe DeCamera dog, which was this.
Yeah. Not good.
Yeah, that's Joe.
That was his dog impression,
He's
in case
never
you're
had
wondering.
a dog, so he doesn't know. Maybe that's why he doesn't know what a dog sounds like.
By the way, Amy from Villanova yesterday said to me, because, I a little shot at Mike Quick when we brought him on the show. She's like, Joe, it's not a roast of your guests. You don't have to rip everybody. I'm like, yeah, but everybody ripped me for 7 years, so let me get back.
You called Mike Quick old yesterday, so yeah, no big deal.
He's losing some yardage on his driver. All right,
You have a dog? Speaking of dogs, do you have a dog on your shirt that's skateboarding?
Yeah.
Have you skateboarded? Are you a skate?
I tried. I was we used to call it fruit booting, but I was a roller blader because I played hockey.
No way.
Get out of here.
You rollerbladed about from place to place, out in public?
Yes, I played hockey, so I would rollerblade. We would go. There was this old caged basketball arena that they had cut the goalpost down, so it was just the perfect post to play. As that was if you hit the post, you scored.
Yeah,
and we would go there and just play for hours. Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Let's get to the ESPN thing. Congrats.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So, how'd you feel? I mean, I didn't hear all of it. What I heard, I thought you sounded good. You looked comfortable.
Yeah.
Tight shirt. How'd you feel?
Felt great. It was nerve-wracking to start. Obviously, whenever you're doing something new, you don't really know what to expect, so you're kind of waiting to see what it actually feels like when you're doing it. But, I think that being on a crew that had all done it before with Scott, Ryan, and Swag, all those guys made it really, really easy. And, it was fun. It was fun to be at the stadium, too. That was one thing that, talking in the process of some of the different opportunities, being at site on the game day, being able to interact with players and feel the fans, that was something that they said was going to be cool, and it was.
You're not going to have far to travel this week, my man.
This is an easy one. Yeah, just walk down the street for sure.
All right, so we'll get to Monday night, coming up, and Jason in the link Monday night in front of obviously all the fans. But let's go back obviously to last Friday, Jason.
Yeah.
Before we even get to the game, because I'm just fascinated by your experience, your first Eagles game that you are an observer since before you were an Eagle. I mean, since literally you cared about the Eagles.
Yeah.
So what was it like to watch an Eagles game that you weren't playing in and part of the team of?
Nerve-wracking. Yeah, you don't get to control any of the outcomes, which is the most frustrating thing. You're sitting at home and you're hoping they get it together, especially obviously with the really sluggish start there, the first two drives. You're like, man, what are we doing here? What's going on? And you're also cognizant that it's an away game and there's a lot of new pieces, but you don't know what's happening fully, so you're just, you're just wanting to get, let's get this fixed, guys. Come on, let's go. And
right.
I think it's a different feeling for sure. It's much more anxiety driven, but less stressful. If that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know.
Does it feel like?
Welcome to being a fan.
Yeah, that's right.
Does it feel like you have even more at stake when you watch Cam Jurgens? When you watch him
That's a
play?
good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes. And I also just I know he's a very, very good player, so I'm not like that. I know he's going to go out there and play well, and I'm very confident in that. And I almost anytime anything goes wrong, I'm like, God, now it's going to just be another thing that's going to be out in the airwaves or whatever. And for me, it's, I really think really highly of him as a player, as a person. All the skill sets are there, and he's going to dominate throughout the rest of the year. So I try not to get caught up in these little moments early on that, I think he's going to continually get compared to me, which I don't think is fair for him. And then eventually when everybody realizes he's fantastic and a great player, then I'll have to live with the fact that there's a guy that's better than me now. So.
That's crazy to say, but it's got to be so, man, proud, almost like family. Almost, the way you talk, it's almost like a dad talking about a son. Like it really does seem like it's.
I don't want to, it's a friend. It's a friend talking about a friend, and I think that the reality is. And I've felt this way, especially towards the end of my career. But I think I always kind of, the only way you can leave the game and have any impact is through the guys that follow you, right? Like everything that I did when I played is officially over, right? Like that's all in the history books, and I can live very happily knowing what I left out there. But the only way I can affect the game now is by those interactions that I had with Cam and the team last year, how I talk to those guys now this year. And, I still want to impact things. I still want to be a productive person in the building and with those guys. So I think for me, I look for it more like, the only way you can impact it as an older player is by shedding your wealth of knowledge onto those younger guys. So extremely, extremely happy to be able to do that. And hopefully, it all pays off this year.
John, very, very similar to how Joe Montana passed the baton to Steve Young. Graciously.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
That's not at all how
totally exactly the same thing.
Well, let's get a lot of calls in here. Go ahead,
the Terrell taking the mantle from Jerry Rice was also not an easy transition.
It usually
that was
isn't.
not friendly.
It usually isn't. And I just think when you look at all those experiences, whenever the older player doesn't do it, it kind of like tarnishes them a little bit, to be honest with you. I don't know what it is, and I've always felt that way. And usually whenever and not even taking examples of like A-list guys, when there's an older player and they get a younger guy in there, if the older player fights it almost never pans out for the older guy, because then like something's off. And I just never felt like it was a conducive relationship. It's not helpful to the guy or the team or the young guy. So it's like, why even get into that mindset? Like it sounds counterintuitive, but the way that you're going to play better and be a better player is to continue to be a great teammate. Almost all the time.
Well, this is why Eagles teams are better when you've got Jason Kelce on the roster. I mean, he's just leading others in a very forthright way of thinking.
Well, look at Brent Selleck and Zach Ertz. I mean, Brent Selleck was the tight end. Until Zach Ertz was. And listen, one thing about Brent, not just being gracious, let's call it, to ultimately be a backup, he reinvented his game. I mean, Brent Selleck, who came into this league, Jason, you remember, you were still at college at the time, but he initially, like in 08, Seltzer in 08 in that championship game, he was a pass-catching tight end.
Big time.
And he developed into a hell of a blocking tight end.
Yeah, he almost had 1,000 yards, or maybe had more than 1,000, but he was right up there. And I was fortunate. I was with him at Cincinnati his last year there, so I saw like how good he was.
Oh yeah.
And he kind of like snuck into Philly, kind of unheralded. And but yeah, Selleck. I don't know that there's a few guys you could point to that are like the pinnacle of teammates, and I think Selleck is for sure up there. I mean, not just as a blocker or a pass catcher, just overall, just great guy in the locker room and genuinely just wants to win ball games.
215-592-9494 to weigh in today. Of course, Jason will be fielding phone calls here, so you can hop aboard to talk about the game. We'll look ahead to the next one. Also, Phil's totally in the mix as well. Let's go to the phones. And a reminder, in 15 minutes, we're going to give you a name as we give away Eagles tickets tomorrow, courtesy of NovaCare, for the Monday night game. You got to know the name we're going to say at 8 o'clock today. Know that name tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And you can win the tickets to the Eagles and the Falcons, courtesy of NovaCare. Let's talk to Justin. Justin, good morning.
Hey, ladies and fellas. How y'all doing this morning?
Doing great, Justin.
Great accent.
Well, I'm from Tennessee. Joe usually says Justin from Tennessee.
There you go.
Huge fan. I've been calling probably since about 2018. And I'm still nervous every time I call, but I tell you right now, boys, I'm as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now.
Wow.
How did I know there was going to be some
long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs? That needs to be highlighted and preserved.
Well, I can tell you this, Justin. Jason's about as normal as a dude as it gets, so just talk like a bunch of guys just talking. Go ahead.
I guarantee he is. A big fan. Anyway, what did you see the other night, like out of Mekhi Becton, that you liked? You know, it his first game at right guard, and we were all kind of hesitant with what it might be. What did you see that you liked and things that you thought maybe he can improve on?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things that you like. I mean, he's a big guy. He hits double teams well. He moves people. And I think he can even get better at that. Like, he was really good in the game. But I think even if he gets his pad level down a couple of times on these double teams, it's even going to be more devastating. I saw a surface that was not conducive to driving people, and he was still able to do that and still able to anchor on power rushes, which is hard to do on those conditions. And then a lot of people don't know this, but he was on silent count too. And for our right guard, who's looking back, trying to come back and get the scope of the defense and know what his assignment is, I thought he did really, really well for his first game in the NFL.
Would that have been his first time doing that because he only played tackle before? Absolutely. So the silent is on the guard.
Yep. So it's guard and center, but the guard is the one getting the indicator from the quarterback.
Right.
Ready.
The center, right. Yeah. He's checking with the center to make sure and then communicating that back to the quarterback when the guard does that. When the center tells him to say it's okay to go, the guard tells the quarterback it's okay to go, and he would never have done that as a tackle.
He's never been involved in that communication. He's always been playing tackle for the rest of his career. So that's a big – I mean, when you turn your head away from the defense, and the defense does this, they know either the center or the guard is going to turn his head. So they'll game plan and move guys around that guy. So there's communication that's happening between the center and that guy with his head turned pre-snap, because it's a game that the defense plays with that guy.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, give me a great answer. What amazes you?
Real quick before, John, I had some of that apple butter and biscuits this morning that you like so good, and what amazes me, y'all, is Joe the Hammered the Cantaloupe having so much useless knowledge sports in his mind. I love you, boys. I mean it. Jason, it's an honor and pleasure.
Hey, it's my honor. That was awesome.
That was great.
All right, Justin. Appreciate
apple
the call.
butter.
All right, so
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember that a couple years ago.
Yes.
So Jason, the field, you referenced it. It's Seltzer. This story has receded quite a bit. Can I tell you why? Because the Eagles won.
Yeah. Oh yeah, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, in the first quarter, watching that, seeing that so clear.
Yeah.
How ticked off were you?
I was ticked off. I mean,
because I was after what happened 2 years ago, I thought it was a disgrace that the Eagles had to play on that type of field again. A disgrace.
Yeah, it's not a surface that the NFL should put their players on. I think, I kind of had a pre-warning. Like, I was talking to the guys, and I think they knew going into it that field wasn't going to be potentially what it should be. I think it was worse than anybody expected, and part of that is, they watered it and it didn't drain properly, and then they painted it. So then you have like wet paint slicking around. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, it's really unfortunate that surface is the way it is. But I don't know, man. There's something about me that I like football when the conditions aren't perfect. That's like one of the unique things about football. Like, it's not like any other sport. Like, you have to play what's happening on the field that day, and you got to figure it out. And I think that, the reality is both of those teams had to play there. There's advantages and disadvantages to that surface being the way it is. Selfishly, as an offensive lineman, I always loved when fields are like that because it neutralized any type of pass rush. Like, I think, the good Lord above that I faced Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley in 14 or it was 13, whatever that snowball was.
2013.
Yeah, like zero pass rush out of those guys. That really helped my game out that day.
Is that why our pass rush was so feeble because of the field?
It definitely affects them, especially a guy like Huff, who likes to bend the edge and get into these extreme positions as an undersized guy. We saw it in the Super Bowl with Hassan, right?
Big time.
Hassan really struggled because a big part of his game is bending the edge and getting when you're bent more, less of your cleats are really in the ground, and you just have more of a chance of slipping out from underneath you. So
it did seem like Bryce Huff slipped a lot more than other guys.
He did.
Like, it felt like every snap.
Yeah, I know that everybody's talking about Bryce and all that too, but. Not trying to make an excuse for the guy, but the reality is, like, that field sucks if you're that kind of player.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can have a big bounce back week this week.
215-592-9494. All right, so let's talk about Jalen. Some really good, some not good. How do you think it netted out from? Let me back this up a different way.
Sure.
The interceptions and the near interceptions.
Yeah.
How much of a concern do you think the coaches feel about that in light of they were really trying to avoid that? It was 2. It could have been 4. How concerned do you think they are?
I think that anytime there's a lot of turnover-worthy plays from anybody, the coaches are really concerned because the reality is the biggest metric that determines wins and losses in this league is turnover differential, right?
Yes.
We're the only team that won last week with, 3 turnovers?
Yeah, it was a -2 for the game.
Yeah. And
That's
so,
pretty extreme.
That.
And you saw it at the end of the game with LaFleur's comments. Like, he knew. He's like, how the heck did we just lose this game with that happening? So, obviously, ton of great stuff. Jalen really executed well against the blitz. In particular, like, even when it wasn't picked up, like, he just was very aware of it, which I was watching very closely to see how he handled, and I thought he did fantastic. He also threw some incredible balls, the ball to Saquon, the AJ on the out and up that he hit for the big score.
Yeah.
Just some really good plays. And then it just felt like he, obviously early on there was all sorts of communication things, but the 2 throws in particular felt like he was just pressing to really try and make a play.
Yeah.
And I think that those are, you would think correctable. Just hey, let's be smarter in those situations.
How about that? Correctable.
Well, I like correctable. My concern is also sustainable.
How long until he trusts the pocket? It still felt like there were times it was there, it was solid, and he's bailing.
Yeah. I don't know. I never played quarterback, and I don't know what even the quarterback coaches say, right? Like, I don't. And this, as an offensive lineman, you're always like, will you stay in this freaking pocket, man? Like, why are you leaving? It sucks.
Exactly.
But
because your job just you just failed at your job because he moved in a way that you didn't expect. So you forget it. You got a 0. Like, your guy just ran off in a direction you were unprepared for, and you look foolish.
But I am going to say because at the end of the day, there is a timing for the quarterback of go through your reads or your progression, and if nothing's there, you staying there is not going to help anything. Like, go out and make a play, and you see this from Pat Mahomes. You see this from the great quarterbacks that really have that next level is, hey, I'm going to come here, run through the play, but now it's time to improvise. And I think that he has that timing. And are there times where he probably should stay in the pocket and just wait a second longer? Probably, but there's other times where he leaves a pocket and makes a play that wouldn't have happened if he would have stayed there, and it probably would have eventually been a sack or severe negative play. So I try not to dwell too much on that because I think Jalen overall has a pretty good feel for that, and I think the more the offense has success and the more it gets in this rhythm, he's going to settle down. Because right now he wants the team to play better. He wants the offense to play better. Especially coming off of last season, and selfishly he wants to play great.
Yep.
The more the offense just function as a well-functioned machine, all of that stuff is going to get reined in. I really do believe that.
You know what's going to help his game if he gets it, and hopefully he does. So obviously I want to see him stay in the pocket more. John, I've said it. I'll say it again. Step up, not step out. Okay? But when he steps out, I do hope he develops stepping out to his left more often and gets better and being effective at it. Here's what it reminds me of. Most of us have played basketball. When you're D'ing up a dude who can only go to his right, it's a lot easier to defend him.
Yeah.
And Jalen reminds me of the guy in basketball who's got a great dribble to his right and can't dribble with his left hand. I don't say can't, but struggles to dribble with his left hand. Yeah. And I think defenses know that. I'm sure, Jason, they shade him to an extent.
Yeah.
And there's a predictability, which is never good for an offense, for the defensive players to know there's a predictable element there.
Yeah, we played Wink Martindale, not the last game of the year, but the second to last. The first time we played the Giants last year was like the third to last game of the year.
Yep.
And every blitz felt like it was coming off the right-hand side. And I think that they were consciously, I really do think they were consciously doing that so that he could not funnel out to his right.
Sure.
And I don't, it's a little bit different than basketball because he's not going to throw with his left hand. And the bottom line is, like, the vast majority of right-handed quarterback teams are going to do rollouts, they're going to do boots, they're going to do a lot of things to the right because it is more conducive for a right-handed passer. But you can definitely keep that honest a few times. It's harder to do instinctually, like trying to freelance because he knows he's better at it going to his right. But, you would like to obviously even it out by going to the left.
And he's just got to plant those. Like, I'll give you an example. Look, we don't normally give Tony Romo too much credit around here, but he was a pretty good quarterback.
He was.
He had one of the best spin moves I've ever seen in football. He would spin backwards where it was just about replanting his foot and firing.
Yeah.
Like he would plant his foot and fire even though he had moved slightly to the left and backwards to do it. It was a very effective move.
Yeah. And, I would love for him to develop, because what I think Pat does so well with this, honestly, and this isn't I'm not like trying to like brag about my brother, but I think him and my brother are always on the same page.
No question.
And when you go into that like situation where now we have to improvise, having one guy that you kind of know what he's going to do, like they do these scramble drills, and the problem with scramble drill is the defense now practices against scramble drill, and it becomes predictable. It's like, we're going to flood this area, so then all the defensive guys are just like going there. And then I watch the Chiefs, and I watch my brother, and he just kind of like, he knows that everybody's doing that, so he just kind of fluffs off to the side, and nobody's there.
Yeah.
And I would love for him to develop that chemistry with Dallas or somebody. Like, it's harder to do with the outside guys. It's easier to do with those inside players. And maybe it can be like Saquon, like, hey, the moment I get out here, just sneak out of the pocket and just sit right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I do. I love the sound of that. Check it down to Saquon because he's going to take it and go score from anywhere. What about Jalen's speed? Why does it look like Jalen is less explosive than, I don't know, what I thought I saw just during training camp even? Like, it didn't seem like in that game he was taking big bites on the ground like I thought he could, like gaining that edge like I thought he could. Is there more to that?
I don't know. I mean, he still feels, when I see him in person, as explosive as I've ever seen him.
That's good.
I don't know that they did. It didn't feel like they did as many of the quarterback like design, like runs and things like that. But yeah, I think maybe the surface had something to do with that. But every time I've seen him, operate, it feels like he's still very, very explosive. Obviously, he's not the same type of player, and he doesn't prepare to be the same type of player that he was, 3, even 2 years ago. Right? We're just not running him as much, and part of that's we want to keep him healthy for a full year, I'm sure. But yeah, I can't really. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen necessarily that big of a drop off, but I also haven't been like keying in on that, I guess.
Coming up in a couple minutes here, another name for you to have a chance to win Eagles Falcons tickets for the Monday night game. We'll get to that in about 2 minutes. Ed in Phoenixville right now. Hi, Ed.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Jason. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Good morning,
Thanks,
Ed.
Just really real quick, I just wanted to tell you, Jason, that how much I appreciate all the time you gave Philadelphia. I mean, you're one of the all-time greats. But what really, I rarely develop like sort of these like emotional like connections to players. But what really kind of drove that home was when I forget who wrote the article, but when Lane Johnson came out about his struggles with mental health and how you supported him. That friendship, that brotherhood just kind of just drove that home for me. So that really meant a lot. So really appreciate that.
I really appreciate you saying that, Ed. Thank you.
But and of all your accomplishments, all your All-Pros, Super Bowl, I have to say the most impressive thing that you can do, I think you and my 2-year-old daughter are one of the 2 people that can do a perfect ass-to-ground squat multiple times. When you have to call out, the protections, you're like, I was like, I just got back from the gym and had the trainer work on me for 30 minutes just to get halfway there, So, I mean, it's like that's the only kind of athleticism that I can kind of relate to. But it's just it's an absolute pleasure to speak with you. Really,
great to speak with you. Got to have the good ankle flexion. It comes down to ankle flexibility. That's bending. Yeah.
I don't know how do you see anything from down there? Like, you can really see 11 defenders from a 3-point stance with your head way down.
Okay, typically I'm not looking at the corners, right? So I'm gauging, okay, what's the front, where are the linebackers at, and where are the safeties at? That's like where I start, right?
Yeah.
Come up, okay, are they the tight ends to the right? There should be in an over front if they're in nickel personnel. Are they in that front? Okay, they're in that front. If they're not in that front, our alarm bells start ringing like, hey, there could be a blitz. Why would they be in something different? And then you kind of go through the game like that. And then after that, okay, the linebacker should be here. If it's a shell, they should be here. If it's going to be a single high, if it's a blitz, they might be pushing to boss. Like you kind of go, and then the safeties confirm that.
you kind of go. Like, this is how your brain works. It's fascinating. So to hear that checklist, one by one by one by one, that every single snap you automatically go through.
Hey, Ed, give me a great answer. What amazes you?
6'6", 340 pounds, Jordan Davis running a 4.7840 at the combine.
You know, I'll tell you what, I remember, so his number at the combine was very similar to Jerry Rice's. So Jerry Rice was what, John, a 4.71, and Jordan Davis was a 4.78?
4.78 for Jordan Davis.
I mean, that's the thing about Jerry. See, the thing about Jerry Rice and Wayne Gretzky and Larry Bird, all three of them were so much more accomplished than their natural athleticism would. I mean, Bird and Gretzky were not, they weren't blazing.
No.
I mean, Larry Bird could not jump that much.
Yeah.
But some guys, they just are way ahead of everyone else and knowing the game and when to be and where to be and all that stuff.
I think that's
hand-eye coordination, all that stuff.
I think all that's part of it. And then I think another huge part is the smoothness of the athlete. Like, I think Jerry had the ability, as a receiver, it's more important to make every route look the same than it is to be blazing fast. If you're going to be like a possession receiver, right? And if you can make that comeback look the same as a go route, the same as an out, the same as like an O, like if you can make all that look similar and get out of the breaks with timing, that's what it comes down to. And like you look at a guy like Wayne Gretzky.
Yep.
Wayne, there's a great, I think he's on Masterclass where he's talking about his father and how he would train him growing up in his backyard on his, like this ice that they made. And he would just bang the puck around the boards. And he just had that feel for where that was going to be. But outside of that, you talk to goalies, he knew how to make a low shot look just like goalies a lot of times are reading like hands and they're trying to picture like, so all those guys that are the best, it feels like they're able to be unpredictable and they're able to make it all look similar. And Bird for sure. I mean, the behind the back passes.
Incredible.
Like, so you don't actually need to be the best athlete from like a skill standpoint or a talent standpoint. I think that, and that's something that even my brother, that's a trait that he's always had that I never had. I was always a brute, pound. I want to play every sport with a helmet so that I can just hit the guy in front of me.
Yeah.
And Travis out there playing basketball and like making guys, crossing guys
skilled
over on the play. Yeah, there's a smoothness and like a coordination there that takes those guys to the next level that becomes harder to defend the longer you go. Like I don't know. Did you ever watch Zinedine Zidane?
You don't think you have that?
Huh? No. That's true, brother. No,
All right,
I wish.
So let's give you another name here because, as I mentioned earlier, the next game is a home game, a real home game, not a Brazil home game, and because of it, we're giving away Eagles tickets tomorrow here on WIP at 8:00, courtesy of NovaCare. Now, this is when you need to listen Tuesdays, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, leading into the home game for a name. So Friday, you can string the 4 names together and win the tickets.
And the name is...
Now, I was going to save this name for tomorrow, but with Jason here, we're going to it today. Nick Foles!
Hey!
Who this weekend, or Monday night, that is,
How's
the Eagles.
everyone doing?
That's right. The Eagles will honor with a red carpet, a long red carpet, for Nick Foles as he gets... You got that, James?
No, I think
you
we
got
all
that?
did, yeah.
No,
Not very subtle.
Long! All right, so know the name Nick Foles tomorrow.
Let's make some noise. Come on.
Know the 2 names that we gave you the last 2 days, and 1 more name we'll give you tomorrow. Again, these tickets being given away courtesy of NovaCare. So if you have the 4 names tomorrow at 8:00, you can win the tickets for the Eagles and Falcons Monday night. So, Jason, let's talk about Nick Foles. I mean, you're going to have this day someday, his day Monday night, but it's going to be special. Can you just, try to put into words Nick Foles' impact on the Philadelphia Eagles, on you, on his teammates, on the city of Philadelphia? How do you even tackle that one?
I don't know. I don't know that they can. I mean, the amount of emotions that everybody in the city felt upon winning that Super Bowl, and then not only that, but Nick Foles happened to play the best game of his career in the biggest game against the best quarterback in the history of the National Football League, and it's just such a. I mean, it's the epitome of a Cinderella story, and it's a guy that was unheralded, really wasn't successful at other stops. I love Nick, and I think he's a fantastic player, and he was one of the guys. Whenever he's in the huddle, I felt like, hey, we're about to go dominate. But for whatever reason, at these other stops, it never really panned out, and I think that in some ways, Philly probably even loves that more. There's something about Philadelphia, and we've talked about it. One of the reasons I'm doing this show, even they love their own more than like most cities do. And like Nick Foles feels like he's Philadelphia's.
Totally.
Yeah.
More so than like I don't know that anybody feels like it's like this like it just feels very, very much
There's no
like
city
he was
like
meant
this.
to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that there was like this divine plan for him to come here and dominate. And just such a great person, a great teammate, and a fantastic player. And I don't know that there's any type of words that can sum up what he means to the city. I mean, you talk about like Rocky. Like I don't. These are like he basically was like the Rocky of quarterbacks in the NFL, kind of.
Yeah.
How surprised were you or shocked when he was traded from here? Because that blindsided me, and I thought he was pretty good. I mean, you guys were 5-2 when he got injured, technically 6-2 if you play that game out. The prior year, he had won all those games, and then, like, he's gone.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised because I think you had heard rumblings throughout the organization that something like that was I think when I heard the rumblings, I was surprised. But I think that, at that point, I think there had been sufficient noise, if I remember correctly, to back then that there was probably something in the works. But, in this league, they tend to move on quick if you're not like financially like beholden to the team or you're not like a high draft pick. It's just, it's a what are you doing for me now league. And, we were 5-2, but I don't think we were necessarily performing as well as we wanted. I think that they were frustrated a little bit with some things. And
he was backpedaling back then. He was backpedaling. He was not as good in 14 as he had been in 13.
Yeah, and I think that, he bore the brunt of a lot of that, and so did other players on the team that got moved on from, quite frankly.
Deshaun and LaShawn. I mean, listen, the three main offensive guys, if you will.
Yeah, and then we lost Macklin the very next offseason.
That's exactly right.
And as much as Chip, when he came in, really took the NFL by storm, as teams continually game planned us and they continually got that stuff, we kind of like stalled out. We didn't really keep evolving, which was so unique because like that's what Chip's whole thing was. It was like, being creative and innovative, and that's why it became what it did. And then it just kind of like stalled out. And like even if you went to the 2013, we went out to like a big, like jumped out the gate to a huge start with Vic, and then Nick took over for a little bit. Then teams started picking up what we were doing, and we kind of stalled out. And then that Oakland game where Nick tied the record for most touchdown passes in a single game, we unleashed a whole new package that we had never done, and like they couldn't defend us because of the tempo, and they hadn't game planned it. So you just wonder, like, if we could have kept doing stuff like that, what that offense and Nick and that team with how loaded it was offensively could have done.
No question.
Because I think retroactively looking back, I think they looked at it like, hey, we're not executing. But I think, like, from my perspective, it looks like, we probably were getting predictable, and it was making it really hard in certain categories.
215-592-9494. Rhea, I'm guessing as the Eagles honor Nick Foles Monday night, they're not going to invite Chip Kelly to be part of the ceremony, right?
No.
Could you imagine that? And here he is, Chip Kelly. All right, let's go to Rob in South Jersey. Rob, hello.
What's going on, Joe? How you guys doing?
We're doing good. All good, my man.
Jason, I just want to say absolutely a pleasure to talk to you, man. And I want to say without shame that in February 2018, you made a grown man cry. And, being at the parade, man, your speech, I was with my wife and our friend at Tavern on Broad, man. And
Tavern on Broad. Baby.
Great spot. Yep.
The tears just, I'm not kidding, man. My wife was kind of laughing at me. She's like, you really cried? I'm like, this is the greatest day ever. But again, just appreciate all your service. And one other thing is that, growing up, I'm 37 right now, and I had to hear it growing up about how Philly never won, Philly's a loser town, and players, some players got it, but nobody ever understood us like you. And I just want to say that I appreciate it so much, man, because you truly, truly understand us as a fan base. And for that, I think I speak for the rest of the city, are forever grateful for all your service with the Eagles.
Thanks a lot, brother. I really appreciate it. And, it was my pleasure. Trust me.
Yeah, so about the Birds this year, I just want to say, looking at the game on Friday, I talked to Ruben and Rob Ellis before the season started. Obviously, Eagles offense, plenty of firepower.
Yeah.
We talked about how this offense looked okay. And Jalen, threw 2 picks. We still put up 34 points.
Exactly.
We left a lot of points on the board, off the board.
Yeah. No question. And I mean, listen, I tweeted after the game, there was a lot of sloppiness offensively, and obviously the turnovers hurt, but there was a ton of great stuff to look at in that first week, and it was against a team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl contending, top of the NFC team. I think that Jalen did a lot of really good things. I think it's easy to look at the negative moments from that game for concern. But if I'm looking at it, they have a new OC, they have a new center, they're operating silent count with a new center and a new guard. They're in an away environment that's slicker than ice. There were a lot of variables in there to cause an offense to kind of be sloppy and to flutter and to struggle. I mean, we saw the Jets. Everybody's claiming that the Jets are going to be the best team in the NFL. And it's just not that simple. You got all these new pieces game one to be clicking and humming like that. And I thought for them to put up that amount of points week one with all of those new things, just even with the amount of talent they have, was an impressive performance offensively.
Hey, Rob, give me what amazes you.
Oh, what amazes me? I joked around. I don't really have an answer. I'm going to say James Seltzer.
Great answer. Great answer.
Come on, man. Even Larry Anderson doesn't like your answer.
No excuse.
No excuse for that kind of answer.
You should keep your mouth shut.
Well, yeah, that caller should have kept his mouth shut. Better to have no answer than that frickin' answer. 215-592-9490.
You would be lost without me.
Yeah, well, I would be. I would be, James. Speaking of answers, it was really interesting yesterday. Vic Fangio asked about Nakobe Dean and Devin White. What he said, we'll play that audio for you next. Plus a lot more with Jason up ahead. Joe DeCamera and John Ritchie on 94 WIP.